Welcome to DJN TV and Tuesday Night with Ben Stowe. Now introducing the one and only Ben Stowe.
Yeah, baby! Yeah.
DJ Event Planner will change the way you manage and run your business. Streamline all of your procedures and software into one easy-to-manage system. DJ Event Planner, the ultimate online planning tool.
Good evening and welcome to Nap Time with Ben Stowe. This is the time where you get to see exactly how Ben Stowe takes a nap after a busy day working in the shop.
I'm all snuggled up here. Got my Star Wars blanket. It's the late show.
It's the late show.
I'm an hour later. It's my bedtime, so I thought I'd just kind of snuggle up and
Exactly. You went and got the jammies on, so now you're ready to just crawl right into bed once we're done.
What do you mean once we're done?
Somebody's got to answer the question.
Oh, I could lay down and be like a going to a shrink or something.
Wait a second. Okay. So
I've got two speakers. How does that make you feel?
So no, we'll go flashback here to NAMM a few years ago when you and I roomed together.
Oh yeah.
So basically, Ben and I are rooming together, and I think we ended up talking like half the night about any and everything. Lights are off, and we're probably both half asleep, but we're still yapping about something. I don't remember any of what we talked about, but
I don't even remember that night, to be honest with you. But I remember the night. I don't remember what we talked about.
Yeah, exactly. We just were chatting about everything. So yeah, tonight.
Yeah, all right, we'll get rid of my mother-in-law made this, by the way. Is that cool? That's very cool.
Really cool.
Yeah, so
that is really
awesome
nice.
Mother-in-law, big fan. So boy, that's a warm blanket. I know. No, I'm toasty. Too toasty.
You are ready for the show. So tonight we're going to talk about, this is something that a lot of questions have been coming out on the different chat boards. So I wanted to talk about tonight's topic, which is how to make my sound system better. And specifically, I wanted Ben to kind of focus on, there's a lot of, and I don't want to call them entry-level speakers, but they're the kind of the lower line in many of the speaker companies. In Electro-Voice, the ZLX is kind of their starting point.
Right.
QSC just came out with a CD series?
Yeah, it's C something. Yeah, very low cost.
Yep.
Very, very inexpensive.
And then I believe Yamaha's got a DBR. PV's got the dark. They're just a lot of the companies have kind of that starting line, and people are taking those out and are using those, and they're like finding out that they want to try to make those sound better, or what it would take to make them sound better for a larger audience. So I figured we're going to take a few minutes and talk about that on tonight's show. If you are watching out on Facebook tonight, we also have a poll set up with the Facebook feed, and that poll is just wanted to find out, we are going to be doing this for the next few shows here, the next few weeks, of what night, if we were going to have one night where we're going to have kind of a bigger streaming night of shows, what night is the best night for you? Is it Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, what have you? So if you're out on Facebook right now, there you go. So a few of you are out there. Hit that poll, and we'll just be keeping track of that, and that's just kind of giving us some feedback on what's the best night of the week to do things, because we have Christmas coming up, and we're going to be doing some really cool things this year for our Christmas shows. Okay.
Maybe I'll bring my elf back. She's been asking about when the next time she'll get to be on a show is. So.
Yeah, it's been a while, hasn't it?
Well, after she just completely trashed my baking skills, I don't know if I'm ever bringing her back.
I thought that was funny.
Everybody but me.
I don't know why you
yeah, you know what? The worst part about it is she's right. I mean, that's the worst part.
Oh, no. Maybe
we'll definitely bring her back. So.
Maybe we should do a Christmas cooking show. Christmas cooking show. It should be.
Do you remember when Red Green did that Thanksgiving show where he cooked the whole meal in the car on the way to the meal? It's worth a look.
That would be. Okay, Rick, I'm sorry, it just went live. I didn't realize I needed to click one more button to make the poll go live. So sorry, Ben. But yeah, that would be kind of cool to do it in the car. But then again, it would be as much fun as doing
I'm not saying we would do it in the car, but I'm saying we could do it. I mean, that was Red Green's thing, right? We could do our thing. Maybe we could. I remember seeing a video where they cooked some bacon with some Sharpies, with some Sharpie lights. I feel like there's a way we could probably do this.
We can figure something out.
I don't know. Maybe we'll just, maybe we'll just do it in the kitchen. I don't know.
It would be safer, except, then we have wives that'll probably like, no, don't touch my kitchen. I mean, not that I've ever heard that.
Let me rephrase. We won't do it in my kitchen.
We'll have to.
We'll go rent a kitchen, a studio kitchen. Maybe our local television, station, they have a cooking show. Maybe they'll let me borrow the set. I know the manager pretty well. I don't know. Who knows?
We'll find out. So yeah, thank you guys for hitting the poll out on Facebook. I see the votes coming in on that. So let us know on that. Even if you're on YouTube, I don't think I can share the link to get there. You just go to the facebook.com/discjockeynews and you'll see the live feed and you can answer the poll. So Ben, let's start off with, what generally happens when they're buying these speakers, and obviously you know this, but I'm just saying this for the benefit of the audience, is they buy a couple of ZLX, whether they're buying 12-inch or 15. We're going to talk Electro-Voice because that's what I'm the most familiar with.
And they're a sponsor of the show, right?
And they're a sponsor of the show. I wasn't going to have to really go there, but I was, I'm a
fan of that. I think when a company puts their money into supporting our industry, it's okay to support them back. And I don't think we need to apologize for that.
So they come in and they buy the ZLX, or they buy the brand new ZLX Bluetooth versions that will allow you to connect your cell phone to the speaker.
Okay, that might be taking the whole sponsorship thing too far now. See,
Wait, I was one of the first ones to be spreading that word, like when they had that. I was pretty excited about that. So, okay, so I'm fine.
That was yeah. Anyway, go ahead.
So we've got their speakers, and they're getting going, and now they find out that they're doing a little bit larger event. So let's kind of go in stages of how they could basically upgrade their sound, make their sound a little bit better after they start with the two speakers.
Boy, that's a complicated question.
Oh, come on now.
I think it depends on how much of an upgrade you're making in your show. There's incremental upgrades. Mm-hmm. It's sort of like buying a inexpensive compact car and trying to turn it into a NASCAR. I mean, you can, there's only so much you can do, I mean, at some point, and I'm getting crazy here, we could talk about replacing drivers in the box and replacing amplifiers. Well, at that point, you have a new box,
Precisely, yeah.
And I know we're not talking about that, but I guess the point I'm trying to make here before I get into what we can do incrementally is that these things are fundamentally different. There are huge differences between ZLX and ETX, for example. And even if you go from ETX to like the touring class boxes, like, X-Line Advance, massive difference, mostly in durability, just because of the abuse this stuff takes on the road. Another good example is the QRX 218 sub and the X sub, which use the same drivers, but are completely different box. One is a touring class box for a reason. And the stiffer box provides more output and all those kinds of things. And so I guess I just wanted to get that out of the way and say, at some point, there isn't anything you can do. If, for example, you said, Ben, I'll give you all the ZLX you want, go do an arena show, I'd say we're going down the wrong road.
Yeah, it just won't work. Yep.
Yeah, it's just not going to work. We need something built for the purpose. That said, though, the fundamental differences in these lower quality, lower cost boxes, and what makes them entry level boxes is you have drivers that are less robust. They're not as good sounding drivers, and they're not as good a sounding box.
Okay.
The whole thing is an assembly. The tuning, the processing, everything is just not quite there. And so there are things that we could do. And again, Electro-Voice has done a great job. ZLX is a great bargain for what it is. Mm-hmm. But there's a reason they have 4 portable models, ELX, above that, EKX, and then ETX. There's a reason that they cost more. So with ZLX, for example, and I'm fond of the saying, we have to have enough rig for our gig. At some point, we're just going to run out of gas with these things.
Yep,
but
for sure.
We can improve the sound quality of them, maybe with some external processing, and some careful and knowledgeable use of that. Certainly, having something like a graphic, a graphic EQ, or something like that, where we could maybe touch up a few things that we don't like. As we get into that, we could accomplish a lot with that box.
And when you're talking a graphic EQ, now I remember early on we used to have these things like these 30 band EQ that would plug in. We'd plug the feed in, the signal in, and then of course take it off to the amplifiers. Something like that, a person would be able to tweak the sound and get a little bit better sound out of it, you think?
Yeah, you can kind of, and again, you can't make it what it isn't, but if there's some things that, maybe we just need to touch up a little bit to make that box a little better sounding. Certainly that's a good thing. You know what? Just this last weekend, I was doing sound for a, let's just say, very, very well-known comedian, who it was a sold out tent show. It was a show on a tent. And this tent is 80 feet wide and 230 feet long.
Goodness.
So it was basically like a big
circus tent, virtually. Almost.
A big canvas, the hallway almost, at 80 feet wide and 230 feet long. And there were 2,400 people in this tent. And so we had not only, video wall on stage, and we had line array left and right of the stage, 8 boxes of EVs X2. But we also had a delay video wall about 130 feet back or so. So people could basically see the person on stage because that person's 200 feet away. And then we actually took some EKX boxes. Incredible that we could use a box as inexpensive. I mean, really a DJ level box at EKX. And we used those as delay fills for the line array. Now, again, there was an incredible pronounced difference between what was coming out of the line array and what was coming out of EKX.
Sure.
Standing 10 feet back of the EKX and 110 feet back of the line array, you still heard the line array. There's a reason it cost what it costs.
Sure.
That said, we did very little work. EKX is a great sounding box. We did very little work on EKX, touched up just a little bit, and it covered, we used those to cover like the back 60 feet. And, those people heard amazingly well. There was compliments, raving compliments from everybody. So there's an example maybe where, we took a box that is completely outclassed by the boxes it's paired with, and we used them to augment a bigger gig,
Sure. And I guess that leads me to getting back to our ZLX, is that when they buy the tops, then, the question becomes, is adding subs going to be a good option to run with those speakers, or is that the next step?
Adding subs is always a good idea. There's no replacement for a sub. People say, well, I'm going to get a 15 instead of a 12, and you will get more low frequency out of a 15 than a 12, but boy, there is no replacement for a sub, and your top is going to work so much less. You're going to take a lot of strain off that top. A lot of that, high energy, low frequency output is going to go away. You'll be amazed at how much louder your tops can go, how much more you can push that top box when you add a sub, and just how much more full and robust your whole sound is going to be. Now, your mileage may vary, but boy, I'll tell you, just like I'm a sucker for good coffee and I'm a connoisseur of sorts. I mean, I'm a spoiled brat when it comes to my coffee. I'm kind of getting that way with sound, and there's just times you can't we used to say it on the farm, you can't put lipstick on a pig, so, I mean, you can, I guess. I had friends that did it, I guess. I don't know. I mean, it was Friday night on the farm, whatever you're going to do, but I wasn't there.
I think we're headed down a rabbit hole we don't want to go down.
Yeah. So, where were we? Subs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So getting a subs well, and now, so the question becomes is now if they buy a 12-inch top in that series, can they put a 12-inch? Because Electro-Voice just came out with the EKX 200, the new 12-inch sub, which, by the way, for a 12-inch sub is incredible.
It's amazing.
Amazing what they did with that. Can they put? Would that be a good? Is something that could happen? I guess is probably the thing. Would you recommend that as a thing, as a possibility, or is it something where a 12-inch top speaker should probably be matched up with something larger?
Yes.
Okay, great.
It depends.
Thank you.
So let's start with adding a 12-inch sub. You will notice a substantial difference in the sound of a 12-inch sub over a 12-inch two-way.
Okay.
Because it is a sub. And again, this just really reinforces my point. There's no replacement for a sub. That 12 in the top is being asked to do a lot of things. That 12 in the sub is being asked to do one thing. And so there's a very clear difference in the output, and adding a 12-inch sub will certainly fill out the bottom end of that sound. It will sound very much more full and robust. I feel like the 12 top would undoubtedly run away from that 12 sub, though. I mean,
Sure.
At some point, it's not going to be able to keep up. So if you're looking for, just overall high SPL and you're looking for boosting that SPL, I wouldn't go that road. I really love the voicing of the, like EKX 12 or even the ZLX 12 over a EKX 18 sub. But even the new ELX 218 sub, so take that ZLX over the ELX 218 sub and wow, you got a whole new rig.
Yeah.
And you could go to the EKX 15, although I think it's actually heavier than the ELX 18. And again, physics dictates thicker wood, stiffer box, more bass. That's why, as you start moving up the food chain, that ETX sub is so much heavier.
Yeah. It's
18 millimeter birch. It's not MDF, that sort of thing. Physics is real. There's no cheating physics here. I mean, loudspeakers have been around for a long time. We've had plenty of time to figure this out. But to answer your question, adding any sub is going to make substantial improvement. And if you're looking to get the most out of that rig, I would say an 18 without a doubt. And maybe even a pair of 18s, depending on what we're trying to accomplish. And you'd be surprised at how much more that top can outrun a sub.
So that's where I was headed to next is a single sub or the two. So the advantage of going to the second sub would be that it would be able to keep up with the tops just a little bit more.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what you find is your bass is a lot smoother when your subs aren't working as hard. I love having more drivers than necessary. It just everything smooths out. That rig isn't working as hard. It just comes easier. And again, for the guys who were at Arm DJs 2 years ago, we had that live band. We had two ETX 18s and one ETX 12 per side. And it was more than adequately loud. We were crushing it in that tent. And then they brought the rig inside and DJs were playing on it. We're just blown away by it. We did an outdoor festival where we had 6 ETX 18 subs per side and 2 ETX 35Ps per side. Incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. Especially when you look at the price difference, between a touring rig and that. Incredible what you're getting. And so when we scale that back to even like ZLX over an ELX 218 sub or a pair of those, that's a stunningly good system for very little money. I mean, realistically, I mean, somebody pointed out, for example, I'm kind of jumping around here, So follow the bouncing ball. That is really good coffee, by the way.
Which was just delivered a few minutes ago, by the way, for those of you wondering.
Yeah, you got me up late, so I'm heavily caffeinated. But to put this in perspective, and this isn't to put anybody down for their budget or anything like that. That's not at all the point here. It's just a matter of perspective. Because we just got done talking about how good you can do with an entry-level series box like ZLX, over an ELX sub. But the ETX rig that had 12 subs and 4 tops, 6 per side and under 2 per side, cost less than one amplifier rack for the touring rig on the main stage at this festival. That's perspective. One rack of amplifiers costs more than that entire powered rig. And so that's stunning what it produces. I mean, that's just stunning what it produces when put into perspective. And so when we scale that back to something like ZLX over the ELX sub, you've got very little money invested. And I know, I realize that's a relative term. You're talking to a guy who used to make lights out of coffee cans. So I know what no money is, okay? But in the real world, and this is the real world, that is very, very little money to put into a rig,
Let's continue on here because tonight's show is going to be a little bit shorter, and we're going to have Brian Red is going to jump.
I'm just getting caffeinated, though. I just topped off.
We're going to get you before. That's why I'm concerned.
We could go for hours, just like there.
That's
we
why
keep
we're
talking.
Get up before that caffeine kicks in. Peter mentioned or asked a question, and this is one of them on my list of questions with the subs, is that the ZLX does not have in the settings into the DSP, it doesn't have the settings for the EKX sub or the ELX 200 sub. So we have to go and set a crossover point. What would you recommend? Is there a crossover point you'd recommend for a 12-inch top speaker to a sub or 15-inch top speaker?
I'd probably say 100. And notably, I'm 99% sure the new ELX sub does have the ZLX in its settings.
Oh, okay.
But, really no harm in just, going with 100 and, pick 100. Pick 100 on both boxes. And I would say that's a really good starting point.
And that wouldn't matter if it's a 12-inch top or a 15-inch top?
Not for me. I really don't want my sub I mean, maybe you could go even a little lower with the 15 if you want. It depends on which sub I've got and which one I want to be doing the workload. Depends on what I'm hearing. I could maybe go to 90. It really does depend on the boxes and your ear. By comparison, by the way, my X2 line array 12s, it's a 12-inch driver in those line array tops. They're crossed over at 80. But again, if you see this driver and you look at the beef of this driver and you compare it to what's in a ZLX, there's just a clear difference.
And there must be something that's taking then the mid frequencies. That 12 must not be being asked to do all the mids and such.
It is,
Really?
but there's an awesome mid-band waveguide over the 12, and it's an incredible engineering design. And again, I've said this, I'm sort of switching gears now, but the Evolve is the only column that I'm aware of that has waveguides in front of it, and that's the same technology they use to make that mid-band driver or that 12, which is really a low-frequency driver, a mid-low, sound like a mid-band driver in the X2. And it's amazing how clear the vocals are. It's amazing how we just don't really have any loss in that reproductive area. And then there's a pair of ND6 high frequencies in there, also on waveguides. So it is, but there's some physics magic that makes that happen. Anyway, back to to like the ZLX, that's a pretty lightweight driver in there. So I would say 100 is probably a safe thing.
Sure. And is there a point now? I think if I remember correctly, there was the settings like 80, 100, and maybe 120. Is there a time where maybe like with the 12-inch subwoofer that going up to 120 wouldn't be a good idea? Is that ever a concern, or does that really not matter?
Of course they put the setting in there for a reason, but I can't think of a scenario where I'd ever go that high with my sub.
Okay.
Again, it depends. Maybe if I've got a really underachieving top and a really overachieving sub, if my sub doesn't sound bad at 120, I mean, these boxes are tuned. So I don't know. I kudos to them for putting it in there. So you got some options, but I don't really like going over 100 with a sub personally.
Last question in this, and then we'll wrap up. When we were talking, of course, we have our ZLX tops that we purchased when we first started out. We've done some shows. We needed a subwoofer. Would you recommend that they would, because this was where should they go to the one step up in the ELX world and grab a sub, because they eventually want to get to the EKX type sound system? That seems to be a really sweet spot for DJs. Or would you recommend
incredible value for DJs? Again, EKX was big enough for a national touring act as a delay fill. It's probably the best value out there for DJs. I mean, just the box keeps impressing me. But to your question, again, it depends. I think it depends on where you're going. Certainly if you see yourself going to EKX, then it makes sense to get EKX. If you see yourself going to ETX, then maybe you're throwing good money after bad, and you should just go to ETX. You can use an ETX sub with a ZLX top. Obviously, that's a bit of a mismatch. well, you're just not going to work that sub that hard. You can just dial that sub back a bit. But I think you have to look at your roadmap for where you're going. And you know what? I've got a lot of different boxes. And so sometimes it's not even a matter of what now I realize, we're talking about DJs, but a lot of DJs do different size gigs and a lot of DJs do some production work and whatnot. So I think this fits. Maybe you have a ZLX rig and then you start building another rig, and it depends. Maybe you can deploy 2 rigs at once. So there's a lot of factors here, I think.
Yeah, and that's been kind of the common thing is that they want to get to the EKX as the example. So do they buy subs to go with their ZLX, or do they save their money and just buy going to the EKX tops and then run the tops by themselves and then add the subs down the line as they're... It's really kind of cool when you have DJs who are being very, very concerned about, they want to be paying basically cash for things and not putting it on credit card and doing things. So it's neat to see. It's just wanting to recommend a logical and responsible, really, I guess is probably the word I'm looking for, methodology for them to grow and expand their sound system.
Well, I don't think there's a right answer here, but I'll give this answer with the disclaimer that it's just an answer. I don't think there's a right answer. I think if it were me, and I only had tops, and I was wondering how I was eventually going to get into EKX, I think the first thing I would do is add the subs.
Okay.
Because again, I think every rig should have subs. That is my opinion. Right, wrong, or indifferent. I think I would say I need to add subs first, and then I can add the tops. Of course, if you can do it all at once, well, kudos to you. Good. But I don't see a lot to be gained from replacing ZLX tops with EKX tops and still not having subs. You're going to get more output by adding the subs first. Now, clear difference in the sound quality. ZLX sounds good. EKX sounds great. So there it is.
Well, there we go.
So go ahead, John. I'm sorry.
I think we've covered our bases. We've talked about kind of a progression from your beginning, the first set of speakers you have and the parties you're doing, and kind of walked through the process or progress to moving up to a larger system that could do more events, cover more people, give a better sound quality.
Well, I want everybody to know that I walked that walk. I had a set of speakers from a brand that I don't think it is a brand. I mean, I think we've all been down that road. And I know it's easy to say, well, you should just go out and buy the best thing, but that's not reality for a lot of people. And so I think this is a very real process. And, I think the key thing here is just to be thinking about where the road leads. It's very difficult to chart a course if you don't know where you're starting and you don't know where you're going. But once you can identify those two things, then you can start to lay down a roadmap that makes sense. And again, and I know people are going to laugh when I say this, and maybe some of their significant others are not going to laugh when I say this, but you can never have too many speakers,
Yes.
It's just, these are assets, these are things that can go out and make you money, and either in rentals, dry rentals, additional opportunities, but this should not be just, wantonly spending money. This should not be a drag on your personal finances. This should not be, my wife loves it when I buy gear, and I know you're probably going, yeah, right. No, she does, because the gear makes money. Mm-hmm. The gear pays for the things in this household. And that's what gear should do. So think about your gear in that way to say, how am I going to add to my arsenal? How am I going to add to my inventory so that these assets can be used to make me more money? Ultimately, that's what I want for you. One, because I want you to be successful personally. And two, successful customers are better customers. My best customers are very successful. They value and appreciate me. And, they place orders and they're not in that difficult situation where they're, maybe they can't place an order they need to place. So of course I want you to be successful.
Yep, that is good. That's a good way to wrap it up. So thank you guys for being with us tonight. If you were out on Facebook and voted on which night, we're going to be putting that up every night here for a couple of weeks just to see which is going to be the best. And we'll be back, of course, next Tuesday night with Ben Stowe, probably at the regular time. We're not sure. It just depends, if there's a Star Wars festival going on or if there's...
Oh, I think we're good for next week.
Okay,
I could double check. Let's see. What is next week is the 9th. I think we're good. There's we have some stuff going on, but I'll be able to...
Excellent.
So I have a funny story for you if you
Sure,
want
let's
to.
go.
I think it's funny if you want to hear it.
Yep, and we'll wrap up with that.
Yeah. Okay. A very dear friend of mine, just a wonderful musician and a wonderful human being, just released a CD, and he worked very hard on it. He's very proud of it. And sort of really kind of last minute, I was asked to mix for his CD release party, which was at a church about an hour away from where I live. And they have a good system there, and their engineer, their house engineer there is a very good friend of mine. He's a great guy, but he had kind of his hands full, and they said, could you just jump in? And so this is really last minute. I didn't really get any time, with the band. I kind of got there about an hour before the thing, the event started, and so we ran through a couple quick songs. I got in there, just kind of touched up the board a little bit, so it doesn't really take you long, to kind of get a workflow. Well, anyway, one of his backup vocalists he had enlisted for this. I overheard her saying, "You're just going to let him go up there and you're just going to let him go up there and touch those knobs? Just like, who, what are you, anyway, and the house engineer said, I'll let him do whatever he wants, kind of thing. And anyway, I guess she really didn't know who this guy was that was up there fiddling with knobs and why, that they're a little more guarded with their soundboard at the church, I think, and I don't know. I was humored by it.
And you must have been wearing your shifty looking T-shirt that day, and
well, I just wasn't their guy, I guess, and
they're protective of their gear.
I enjoyed the anonymity, if you will.
There you are.
I really enjoyed just kind of being this random guy, and I enjoyed the scrutiny of what's that guy doing? What's he? Let him touch the boards.
He'll break things. Get him away.
Yeah, it was interesting. And then I think my friend told her, my friend who's the engineer at the church, I think he told her who I am and what I do, and it's sort of, it was a little, she was a little timid after that, but anyway, so.
That sounds good. We'll wrap up on that. Thank you guys for being with us.
Was that not as funny as I thought it was?
It was a cute story. But you've told me versions of that before. So I mean, it's not.
I guess it happens from time to time.
It does happen from time to time, and it's makes us chuckle. Those of us who know what you do and your ability and your skills in that arena. But
maybe one of the other funny parts, I know you want to keep this short, and we can tell stories offline, but was a couple who attends the church came up and said, "Oh, that mix was amazing. That was really fantastic. That everything sounded so good. What are you doing on Sunday?" I'm like, I'm not your guy. You got a guy. He's a good friend of mine. He's a very good engineer. I'm not your guy.
He'll take care of you on Sunday. All right. Thanks, Ben. Gang, we'll be back in about 5 minutes with Brian Red tonight. Good.